Hi, thanks so much for joining me in the Everything and Anything in a Big Gay podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman, and I have a fantastic guest today. I am so happy I got to interview Bree Fram, and I will tell you all about her in just a moment. But before I do, I wanted to tell you about some funny video that I found on YouTube. I am uploading my videos or checking out my videos that on my own YouTube channel. And then when you log on to YouTube, it gives you suggested videos to watch, like, I guess for like a For You page on TikTok. I guess it's obviously looking at my algorithm and saying these are the things that you should look at. For some reason, I got a video that was put out, I think 3 years ago or so, and it's called, hold on, I think I pulled it up here. It's called Straight Men Kissing Each Other for the First Time, First Takes, and it has 3.8 million views. And I'm like, I don't even understand straight men kiss. Like, what's this going on? Like, what is this about? So I pull it up, I start watching it. It's an 8-minute video, and it's basically they're pairing different guys. I think it was, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I think it's 4 couples, so 8 guys total, and they stand in front of each other. They're heterosexual men, and they are supposed to kiss each other to just say what it was like or whatever. One guy was kind of questioning his sexuality, but he's never has done anything with somebody of the same sex. But it was quite interesting that they are putting this out there. And then once I clicked on it, of course, I started getting all these other videos. And now they're guessing which man is bisexual. And so people that are judging, like, who's bisexual? And at the same time, I'm like, who cares? But that video got 1.5 million views. So people are into this content. And then as I'm scrolling through these other videos, they're suggesting to me, they're doing in-person, like match.com or whatever. But somebody comes in front of you, you're just looking at them. And you either swipe left or right with your hand, where you're going like, you swipe to the right. I guess, I don't know, whatever. Right, I mean, we'll just say that means that you're not interested in to the left. And then both people do it at the same time. So they may disagree, but it's like a whole game they have online for like matchmaking. And this is, with same-sex couples. It's with heterosexual couples. It's with everything. And then I got another dating type game where a person walks in, there's like 8 people standing there. They all have balloons. Based on just what the person looks like, if you could pop your balloon. And so as soon as a person walks in, people that are not attracted to that person, they pop the balloon. I feel like it was so mean. And then they get asked questions by the host. And as the person is asking questions, if you don't like their answers, you can pop your balloon, and that means you're not interested in dating this person. So whoever's left who didn't pop their balloon, if there's any, they can go on a date with one of these people. I'm so glad I'm not single. I feel like the single world is so harsh, and it would be so hard. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's degrading in a way. Like, you're basically like going and if people pop your balloon, they're basically saying they're not into you. I feel like it's just like mean. And why do we have 2 straight guys kissing? I mean, and why did it get 3.8 million views? I don't know. It makes me feel old. It makes me feel like I just don't get it. I mean, I guess I'm one of those 3.8 million people that was like, what is this about? So I guess I got sucked into it. So they know what they're doing. So I'm questioning it, but at the same time, I'm watching it. So it's crazy. There's another group of women, and I love them. They are African-American Black women, and they all sit around a table or sit around, or they're just sitting around on couches, and they're not allowed to laugh at the other person's joke. And if they laugh at one of the people's jokes, then they're out of the game. and they tell the most body off color jokes. And one person at a time goes and tells the joke. And I think this podcast series is called because if they don't laugh, they can make that noise to help prevent them from laughing. I love these women. They are hysterical. Their jokes are so bad, like so off color, like so they're not politically correct jokes. And I really like them. There's a few lesbians that are in the group. They're just fantastic. I hope they're monetizing it, making a ton of money because they are actually funny and they've come up with something very unique. And so I will look for that and post it on my Instagram page if I can find it again. But they're funny women and I love them. So let's get into my guest today because I feel very honored to have interviewed her. Her name is Bree Fram, and she is running for Congress. She served in the military, and then she was in the space program for the United States government. And because she is transgender, she is no longer part of that. And she's running in Virginia. And I really, 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 really hope that she wins. And if you do not live in Virginia, that does not mean you cannot help her win because our community needs to get behind Bree and we need to help her win. Living in Virginia means that if you're in her district, that means you can go vote for her. And so if you live there, you should be doing that. But if you don't live in Virginia, there's so much more you can do. You can volunteer. You can do phone banks for her. You can donate money if you have money available to go to her campaign. But the only way we're going to turn around what's happening in this country is if we have people like Bree that are actually going out and making these changes. So I really, really, really hope she wins. We need more people like her. I interviewed her. She's inspiring. She knows what she's talking about. She knows what the problems are that she has to face ahead of her. She was impacted by all of these things that are happening from the current orange convicted felon, what his whole administration is doing. I mean, she was impacted. She has to win. We have to support her as a community. So enjoy my interview with Bree Fram because once you listen to this interview, you will understand why you need to support her, why we need her as a leader in this country. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the interview. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman, and today I have a guest that I am so thankful to have. I have been trying to get her on my podcast for about a month, and she's been a little busy. Welcome to my show, Bree.
Well, thanks for having me, Zach. It's a pleasure to join you and talk about anything and everything.
Yeah. So let me just start off by saying I am so proud of you for what you're doing. I love the person that you are. And just from what I've read a lot about you, and I do a news podcast called Listen Up Girl, and it's 10 minutes or less of LGBTQ plus news. Every day I do it now, and you're in my news a lot. So because you're doing incredible things. So let's start from the beginning though, before I jump into all the incredible things you're doing today. Let's talk about who you are. And you were part of the United States Space Force and a high-ranking person. And so tell me about that part of yourself and your career.
Well, sure. It's almost like we have to go all the way back to the beginning to talk about the Space Force.
Yeah, let's go back to the very beginning then. Start from there.
I grew up thinking that I was going to be a paleontologist. Like dinosaurs were my everything. I probably knew every single name by the time I was 4 years old, and that was probably my version of knowing all the Pokemon. And so I was like, this is cool. I can actually study dinosaurs forever. This is amazing. But when I was about 9 or 10 years old, a friend of mine dragged me over my objection to watch an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation with him.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done with dinosaurs. I'm going to be Geordi LaForge. I'm going to be the chief engineer on a starship.
Yep.
I'm going to make the warp engines go, and I'm going to help humanity expand into the stars.
Don't you wish we were in the world of Star Trek and really? I wish we were.
Oh, it's what I didn't realize at the time was that Star Trek was showing me the culture I wanted to be a part of, far
Same.
more than the technology. That people literally from different worlds could come together, no matter what their background was, and solve the galaxy's biggest problems together. Some cases, just you needed to get around a conference table and talk through the issues, and then you come up with a great solution and you go do it. So Star Trek was awesome from that aspect. And then even a few years later, when Deep Space Nine came on and showed me the queer and the trans representation, I didn't know I needed to see at the time. It really was formative for me and my worldview. But more than anything, it set me on the path to become an aerospace engineer, which is what I got my undergraduate degree in. And I was like, great, I'll go work for NASA or maybe a Boeing or a Lockheed, and I'll build satellites or plan programs. But I graduated in 2001. And as I was applying for those jobs, we got attacked. And it was my moment to realize that the opportunities that I had been given to pick whatever I wanted to do in life, to be whatever I wanted to be, were not free, were not guaranteed to anyone. And that changed my life. Within a week after the attack, I drove to see my girlfriend, who is now my wife. And about halfway there was an American flag hanging from an overpass. And it was a good thing that I had driven that route so many times, because I cried the rest of the way to her apartment. And I walked in and said, I'm going to join the Air Force. And from there, it became a 23-year career doing all sorts of incredible things, things I never would have imagined myself doing, working on great space programs, meeting incredible people. But then for the back half of my career, to be able to do it authentically, which I'm sure we're going to get into, was awesome. But more than anything, when the Space Force was stood up and I got the invitation to join, it was like a marriage proposal, because I was like, yes, 1,000 times yes, this is what I want to do. Because that to me was our effort to create a 21st century military culture that was going to lead us to that 24th century ideal.
Yeah. How did you get picked? Because you were so good at what you were doing in the Air Force that they just kind of selected you and invited you to come on board of this?
Yeah, the Space Force actually did get to hold a board and select the people that applied to transfer over to that service.
Wow.
But as an astronautical engineer, not too many of us were needed anymore in the Air Force with all the space programs transferring. But we did still have to go through that process. I applied, was accepted, and then spent the last 5 years of my career in the Space Force helping stand up that service and what we did and how we did it.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like you got to do a little bit of the Star Trek piece almost in a way, right?
When we finally got our new uniforms, and I was one of the lucky ones to get one of the first prototypes to wear. And I actually ended up getting to go to a queer Star Trek convention in uniform, did some recruiting, but I was given an award. And I also, I got to take my picture in my Space Force uniform with a couple of the Star Trek stars. And I was like,
wow,
this is really cool. But it was so meaningful to be a part of and to wear, as I called it, our nerd glam, that really did stand out in a way that was meaningful for us as a separate service and kind of reflected our values.
Awesome. Talk to me about, you mentioned this a little bit, of just about whenever you were able to become your authentic self. Like, when did that happen, and kind of how did that, before you'd answer that, I just want to say, I have interviewed many transgender people on my show, and I've been doing the show for almost 2.5 years now. And the way I feel about transgender people has completely changed. It's not that I didn't like transgender people before. I just have a different respect, because it's so incredibly brave to be your authentic self. And I just appreciate it so much. I interviewed a woman named Bernie Wagon
Blast.
Yes. I am friends with her now because she became her authentic self at the age of 66 years old. She had to tell her family, her children, her wife, like everything. And something about that story, whenever she just was so real, and there's just been countless other transgender people that I just have such a deep respect for. And my news podcast that I do, that I mentioned before, 50% of the stories, unfortunately, are about transgender issues. And sometimes I search and research for good stories, and unfortunately, they're harder to find in today's world. But I just wanted to throw that out there and just let you know how incredibly brave and how much respect that I have for every transgender person that is living their authentic self. So now, if you could, I'll throw it over to you after my little introduction.
Trans people, I think, have become what I hope is the last boogeyman.
Yes.
As we've picked any group of people and said, they are the problem, they are the source of all of society's ills. We've gone down through the years, over the decades of American history, picking smaller and smaller groups of people to blame.
Yep.
Trans people are about 1% of the population. We're about the same as the amount of redheaded people in the population. So it's hard to imagine, who might be next if trans people are no longer demonized in the way that we are. But unfortunately, we do look for someone to hate, to be a source of, well, I can feel better about myself because those people are the issue.
Yeah.
But all those groups that we've demonized in the past, in the most part, for most people, we have recognized, wow, how silly, how stupid, how cruel of us was that to say that the Irish or African Americans or women or gay people were the problem, because the same arguments about them are the same arguments being thrown about trans people in many cases. And they're often based on just outlandish stereotypes. But for me, as a trans American, I actually like to say that there is no more American story than the trans story. Because for us, who were we as a nation, if not assigned British at birth? And then we literally said, wait, that's not us. We know we can be something better, and we are willing to fight for it. And in our case, we fought a war to be Americans, to be the best version of ourselves. And that's all trans people are asking for, is let us be the best version of ourselves. Because when we can be our best selves, that's reflected in our relationships, in the work that we do, and our families, our communities, our organizations prosper, because that's the same thing that happens for anyone when they get to be their authentic self. They take off that heavy cloak or that weight that has held them down, that tax they pay on their mental energy, and they just get to be. And it's freeing and it's amazing.
Yeah. And I just can't wrap my head around why, and I try not to get political in the show, and it's so hard not to, but I just can't wrap my head around why there is such an attack on transgender people now. Like, I just don't know why there was, I think it's 674 bills that have gone in the last year and a half trying to take away rights. Why Kansas had to take away driver's license. Like, the whole thing, I can't comprehend it. And again, like you said, less than 1% of the population. And why are we focusing on that whenever look at the world today, what's happening? I mean, it's just like there are so many more things that should be focused on. We're talking about destroying an entire civilization in the Middle East, but we're focusing on people using the bathroom. I mean, it's just insanity to me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, fear drives votes. Fear drives dollars. And if you can make up a problem that doesn't exist, but get people afraid of it, people stay in power. So ultimately, it's about a power dynamic. It is about the people that have it wanting to stay in power despite the fact that their policies actually make the lives of the people they represent worse. So that's where it comes to all of us that we have to break away from that fear. We have to show people the reality of it, because the stereotypes of who we are as trans people are so outlandish. There was one for trans women, and particularly trans women in the military, that, we couldn't possibly return fire from our foxholes because we'd be too busy weeping about our gender identity or wondering what we're going to wear that night. And it's so outlandish that one of my bosses, who I worked for about 6 months before he retired, called me into his office before he left and said that I broke his stereotype of who a trans person was just by showing up and doing my job. I was like, well, that's a really low bar and a pretty easy one to step right over. So they're out there. And because people don't know us in many cases, they buy it, that we are someone other, someone lesser. And by telling our stories, by showing up, by finding that shared bond of humanity, whether it's a sports team that we share, whether that's a food that we each like, we can actually break those stereotypes and break that fear. But we have to find a way to make that connection and to be in those rooms in the first place. And right now, that's a tough deal.
How is all the things that are coming out now in, the media, what's coming out of the current White House administration, how does that reflect? I mean, how does that impact you every single day? I mean, because just for me, as part of the LGBTQ plus community, I think about it every day. And it's not because I'm talking about the news. I mean, that's part of the reason why. But I think that I'll just say that I look back whenever Obama was in office, and I think about how far we were, like how much progress the LGBTQ plus community made, And now I look where we are at, and I feel like we've taken 20 steps back. Where now people are talking about in South Carolina, let's get rid of same-sex marriage. We're having this conversation again. Like, I just don't understand like how we got here. So how are you dealing with this on a daily basis?
Well, the fact that I went from one president who invited me to the White House, had me stand up and saluted me, to another president who immediately issued an executive order that said that I and all the other trans service members were dishonorable, undisciplined liars who lack the humility required for military service. Yeah, an attack on my character and our collective character like that hurts. And then the pragmatic piece of it was that my career was taken away. Now, would I have stayed in if I hadn't been thrown out when all of a sudden we have a Department of War Crimes committing violations of international law left and right, reckless wars that we should not be in, that are illegal and immoral? I like to think I would have left the service anyways, but that choice wasn't mine to make. That was taken from me by the president telling me that I was the wrong kind of American. And that's the message I want to send now. And one of the reasons that I'm running, beyond the fact that it is to show this administration what happens when you kick out a bunch of highly motivated badasses and don't expect consequences. But there is no such thing as the wrong kind of American. Everyone should have the opportunity here to be the best version of themselves and not live in fear of the federal government.
Are you connecting with Sarah McBride at all?
I have certainly met and spoken with Sarah several times over my career. I look up to what Sarah has done and the grace that Sarah has in so many things, the eloquence she has to speak about so many issues. And I would just say, when I first met Sarah, this was probably a decade ago, I'm like, wow, if there's ever a trans president in my lifetime, it's going to be Sarah McBride.
Yeah, I just love the way that she claps back at people whenever they come after her. So she does it, like you said, in an elegant way. Like she's graceful about it, and she's not doing it the way some of these other people are just so nasty and mean. So she just kind of being her authentic self. So
yeah, she does it in a way that reveals the character of the person attacking her, more than anything. And that so often makes an impact because it makes someone look small. It makes someone look foolish when they base an attack on something with no evidence whatsoever behind it.
Yeah. And so I'm going to ask the question, is this why you decided to run for Congress? Because to make a difference into all this craziness that's happening, to maybe you can help reel it back in and make this really America the way it should be again.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a vision for where we can be, where everyone has the opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness in the way that works for them. It is about getting back to our founding promise that America can be better tomorrow than it is today. And so it is not just about me. It is about our kids. It is about our grandkids. It is about making everyday Americans' lives better. It's protecting our democracy, ensuring we can afford to live in this country, to be provided with the health care that we need, and also to have a government that is hopeful, that is about how do we put good into the world that is reflected back to us, and that also provides the services that we need on a daily basis and makes our lives easier while investing in the future. Those are all things that animate my run. But more than anything, it does get back to that core principle that there is no such thing as the wrong kind of American. Yeah. And if I can do this and give a few people hope that we can get through this, that there are people out there fighting for them that are going to stand up to this administration despite the risks, that's what this is all about. And so if the uniform gave me the courage to do anything, it's to stand up to a bully. And Donald Trump is nothing more than a bully. He has no idea. He has no plan. He has nothing to do that will make anyone's lives better except for the family he has and the pockets and lining the pockets of his billionaire buddies. That's all he does. So I want to make life better for everyone and fight for that.
Do you see a shift coming in I see a shift though in the country now. I think this war with Iran I think even before that, there was a shift happening. My mom is very democratic. She posts on Facebook every day. She's in her mid-70s and loves to stir trouble up on Facebook about how much she hates Donald Trump, and she makes fun of him and all this. And it's kind of hysterical in a way because it's my mom. But her friends, some of her Republican friends that have voted for Donald Trump in the past, she has told me they actually did not vote for him in this last election. And some of the ones that did vote for him now regret it. And they have said that openly. So I feel like there is a whole shift coming now, especially with this war that we're in now, that people are starting to realize he's not exactly who they thought he was, or the brainwashing is going away, I should say, in some ways.
Yeah, when the excesses are so outrageous that you can't ignore them, and whether that is shooting people in the streets or breaking every campaign promise you ever made, eventually that comes back to bite you. And if the president's, he stated he would lower prices on day one, he would do all these things that made life better. But if he were running on an agenda of, I'm going to raise prices for all Americans, would he be doing anything different? Because here's what my list would be if I wanted to raise prices. Start a war in the Middle East, put taxes on all Americans in the form of tariffs, and shrink the workforce. That is exactly what he is doing.
I had a list, actually. I was looking for it because I had a list of all the things that he says he wasn't going to do. It was a list of 10 people. I can't find it, but those 10 things he ran his campaign on saying he wasn't going to do, he actually has done all those 10 things. So it's really just the opposite. It's like we're in a bizarro world or something where he has completely gone the opposite direction where he said he was going to take the country.
Yeah, and I think there is so much of that all that is still based on fear. And if we ask, well, why isn't this Congress holding him accountable? Why don't any Republicans have a spine to point out the mismatch between the rhetoric and what's actually occurring? Or when the rhetoric is so outrageous, such as, I'm going to eliminate an entire civilization, no one says anything because they're so afraid of the fear that this president has whipped up, the death threats that they get all the time. And this is, again, why do we need a hopeful, positive vision? We need to get away from this where everyone in one side is driving things by fear. That will come back and haunt us. And it's the work of generations that we have in front of us to restore faith in government, that we're actually capable of doing good things for the American people.
I have a question about what you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Because I have to say, I thought she was one of my least favorite people on the planet at one point. She's up and down with me, but I respect her a little bit now because I feel like she's got a little bit more sane in her head, or maybe not. I mean, maybe this is all just an act, but I feel like she is like stepping up a little bit more and like saying how she really feels, and like she's calling the president out and stuff. And what are your thoughts on her?
So, like you, I had a whole host of issues with Marjorie Taylor Greene for so long, and she hurt people all the time and sent hatred into the world. So now, I mean, at least she is doing some things that you might consider to be rational, and to realize that, hey, maybe some of that she said and did was wrong. But there's also that I don't know what her motivation is. Is she just getting off a sinking ship because she sees what that is? Had she finally reached the point where, she had earned enough money from what she had done? I mean, she made millions of dollars as a member of Congress. Is it just like, wow, I am tired of actually putting out so much hatred in the world because some of it's actually coming back to me? So, yes, she has said and done some things in the recent past which I wish more Republicans would do, but it's hard to excuse her history of behavior and say now she's a good person.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm at. Like, I want to forgive her totally. I don't think I will, just because of all the hatred that she has put out there and the insanity that she's put into the world. I mean,
but we do have to look at that across the political spectrum of, look, we are always going to have people who disagree in our government. And we have to be willing, even with those that do things we fundamentally disagree with, particularly on certain policies, if they want to work with us on how do we make everyday people's lives better, we have to be willing to have those conversations still. So that's where I'm at, of that I'm always willing to have a conversation with someone, despite what they might have said in the past, if it's about moving the ball forward for Americans. And that's the kind of government I think we need to have, even when we can call each other out for the vehement and horrible behavior that sometimes does occur with our members of Congress and our government.
What do you think is going to happen in November?
Well, I think Democrats are absolutely going to take back the House, and depending on what happens here in Virginia is the most important thing. I'm telling people all the time that our vote here on redistricting is the most important vote we're going to take all year, because that may be the margin by which we take back the House. Now, will we get the Senate? I'm hopeful, but a lot of that is dependent on how bad things get. And you hate to be in a position where you're like, if things get worse, we have a shot, because you don't want things to be worse for Americans, but we need to get the Senate as well if we truly want to be able to hold this administration to heel. But I believe that we're going to be able to take the House, certainly. And what that means is doing the work to gather all the evidence necessary and put the plan in place, not just to hold this administration accountable for its crimes, but also show the vision of where we can go. Where can we get to, and how are we going to do it? Because for all their faults and all the hatred that was in it, Project 2025 actually was a blueprint that was acted on.
Yeah.
And Democrats too often are just like, hey, we're going to get better. We're going to do these things. But it sometimes shows up as, we're just going to go back to what was. And the status quo is okay. So we're just going to get rid of these folks and just go on as though nothing had happened. No, there have to be a plan in place that has a vision. And to me, that means starting to fight for constitutional change. What does it mean to have limits on the pardon power as a vestige of royal rule? How do we make sure there is no foreign influence and that no one is above the law? So, yeah, let's look back and let's limit the powers of the executive, but let's also look forward. Let's make sure we get the Equal Rights Amendment into the Constitution. Let's take the work that we've done on voting rights over the past 100 years and the still to be done work, such as in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, get that into the Constitution and focus on expanding access to the ballot and what it means to participate in democracy. What are the other big things we can go after so Democrats can actually take the win and make things better for Americans?
Well, I mean, what do you tell Democrats? Because I think Democrats are getting a little bashed now because they're like, "Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you doing more?" I understand it's hard to do more when you don't have the majority, but like, what would you kind of tell them about stepping up and trying to do more? Like, what's your advice for them?
Well, one thing, we did talk about trans issues in the past, and a lot of Democrats don't know how to talk about it well. So, or they hold views that also have absorbed those stereotypes. So beyond getting educated on something like that, Democrats need to be willing to actually address the issue rather than just pivoting away from it completely. And there are too many that still just want to move on to something else as quickly as they can, where if someone poses a question with a premise that lacks reality, actually address that and call it out. Sure, you can then move to what you want to talk about, but we have to be forceful in rejecting falsehood and the painful hatred that comes out so often. So that's just one issue. But in many cases, it's like you need to actually talk about and share these stories, hold people up as examples of the amazing Americans that we are. And in some cases, make your Republican colleagues feel a little bit of shame for what they've done and what they've enabled. When Renee Good and Alex Preddy were murdered, I thought what the Democrats in Congress should have been doing is, put a big screen TV outside their offices and play that. And as the Republican colleagues walked by, make them see reality. And this is what they were enabling their president to do. I don't know that would have changed things immediately, but they need to understand that they are enabling things that are killing and destroying the lives of so many Americans.
Have you been reached out to by anybody that surprised you with support?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are people that I just get, messages from people that I don't know that are like, I am so inspired.
But you are inspiring. You are so inspiring.
Well, thank you, because that is a big part of this, of what do we do to inspire others to engage in the process. And as I mentioned, it's not just about, do I win? What are the other wins along the way? Do we bring people into the process? That becomes really important to me. So it's those people that said, I'm going to come out and vote, or I've never donated to a candidate before, but I'm donating to you. One random person that came to me through a LinkedIn connection was like, I have never given to a Democrat in my life, and I voted for Trump twice, but I am going to donate to you. That is really meaningful. But I'll tell you what's even more special to me. It's what happened to me just a couple of weeks ago after I spoke at a No Kings protest. And a young person, probably 18, 20 years old, came up to me afterwards. And I could tell they were really struggling to get out a question. And like, I think I know what you're going to ask. And if you're wondering, am I trans? The answer is yes, I am. And kind of this relief washed over their face. And after another minute or two, they said, I think I am too. And, we talked for a moment, and before we were part ways, like, I'm proud of you. I hope you were able to find your most authentic self. And I said, would you like a hug? And this person was tentative and first reached in, but after about 2 seconds, They just held on for dear life.
I love that.
And so if I can be that person to one person, but even better, a handful of people or 100 people or thousands of people, to give them the hope that there is a future out there for them and a country that will welcome them, I am so thankful to be able to do that, because there are people that did that for me and people that I took courage from. And so if I go out there and make a difference in making courage contagious, that's what I want from this. And yeah, winning would be fabulous, and that's the goal, but let's make life better for people. Give them hope.
Bree, I just want to say that I think you maybe do this because you kind of just talked about that one story, but I do hope that I encourage you to do this, that I hope you, at the end of the week or end of the day sometimes, you just take a minute and reflect back on who you are and what you're doing for people. Because that one person, like you just said, it could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people. I mean, you got my attention. You are giving people so much hope and you're doing such amazing things. And I just hope that you realize how awesome that is and how you're that light that everybody needs right now. And so I just hope that you do reflect on that sometimes, that we need more people like you in this world. We need more people that care. We need more people that are being authentic. And you're kind of giving all that energy out and we all feel it. And so I hope that you realize that. And if you don't, I'm letting you know you should.
I reflect deeply on that all the time because it's my family story.
Yeah.
Hope, when it's gone, people run away.
Yeah.
Or we lose lives. And that happened to my family. In fact, in the run up to the 2024 election, I met my mom for a weekend away that I had promised her for Mother's Day in Maine. And after I picked her up from the airport, we went to the ocean and we sat down at a picnic table. And her first question to me was, "What's your plan to flee?" And it wasn't the question I was expecting from my mom, but she was thinking of our family, her father, her grandfather. My great-grandfather was a hero of the Imperial German Army in World War I, but he was Jewish. And 20 plus years later, when he thought Nazism was a blip and, his uniform, his heroism would protect him, those expectations even were still there. Even after he got held at gunpoint, his hotel's windows were all broken, he still had that hope. This is my place. This is what I'm fighting for. But one day when he came out of the door this morning and there were two people, a Christian and a Jew, hanging naked from a light pole, dead, with a sign underneath that said, "This is what happens when you pollute the Aryan race," his hope died. And it was time to flee. And he took my, at the time, 12-year-old grandfather and made it on a midnight train to Paris right before the Berlin Olympics, the day before the SS came to arrest the family. And thanks to a connection with an American that had stayed at their hotel 15 years earlier, they were one of the lucky few that got into the United States.
Yeah.
And that's what my mom was thinking about for me. That would I have to flee? Or would I be foolish enough to think that my uniform would just protect me no matter what was happening in this country? And I still had hope, though. I still have hope that we can make this place better and that this country is worth fighting for. So I said, "Mom, I'm not going anywhere. I plan to stay and fight." And we need people to do that, to give others the hope, to pass that courage on, because what we've built here is worth fighting for. It is not something to just let go of after 250 years, despite our checkered past. It was all about moving forward and being better tomorrow than we are today. And I still believe we can get there.
That is so inspiring and so amazing. And again, we need more people like you in this world, in this country. You're what we need. And I just, everything I see about you online is I can't stop getting enough of you because I'm just so inspired because you're doing what we need. You're putting that message out there. You're being your authentic self. I could go on and on and on for hours about how you are an American that we all need in this country right now. And so I just want to say that I'm not in Virginia, can't vote for you. I'm going to donate. If I want to volunteer, I want to do anything I can to help you win. And I want all my listeners to realize the same thing. If you're not in Virginia, they can't vote for you necessarily, but there's other things they can do. And, it's like, do it. I mean, I at one point during the presidential election cycle, I was writing postcards for Pennsylvania and Arizona and doing what I could just because I live in Massachusetts. So
Yep.
I know how things are going to turn out in Massachusetts, and I didn't have to do anything really here other than to go vote. But I want people to really support you. I will put all the links in the description of this video or podcast, however you're listening or watching this. So you can go and do what you can, volunteer, give money. Can you give me a couple of things that people could do if they don't live in your district?
Yeah, you hit the big one. Campaigns run on donations and volunteers. So at our website, teambree.com, you can do both. And more than anything, those donations allow us to reach more people because I can't knock on every door in a district full of 800,000 people.
Yeah.
I can't go speak at everyone's event, but we can send mail. We can do digital advertising. We can leave cards on doorsteps. That introduces people to me and allows me to reach others and say, you know what? It's time to pick the best candidate, not just the person who was next, and gives them that hope that there may be someone out there who is fighting for them. So donate if you can. Otherwise, volunteering is amazing. If you are in the area, you can help us knock on those doors. If not, you can make phone calls, you can send texts, you can potentially write postcards. There are all sorts of things that we need help with, and it is up to you to help us get there.
I wanted to ask you one more thing before we end. You hear, you have all these people that are in government that are so anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ plus. And we know that they're actually part of our community. Why do you think that they're secretly part of the community, but they're so against it and they have a public face of being anti-LGBTQ plus? What is your thoughts on that? Like, why do you think that is?
I think it's self-preservation. They believe that the people around them would never accept them for who they are.
But everybody knows who they are, though, because it's obvious. It's like a weird game.
We might think so, but psychologically, we are so protective of our identity, and the risk of pain, the risk of rejection, is one of those those hardest barriers to ever get over. And so in many cases, I think what they're doing is projecting to say, no one can ever know. And the best way I can make sure that no one knows is to be so rabidly against this that no one would ever suspect. And I think this goes beyond LGBTQ identities. And I think we see this in rural portions of the country as well, where there might be a lot of closet Democrats, but they know or they believe that their neighbors would think lesser of them if they were vocal about it. Mm-hmm. So this again gets back to the what can we do? It's about showing up and giving others courage. So that event I talked to you about where I met that young trans person, this was a rural community in Virginia where this was only the second protest they had ever held. I was at the first one too. There were 75 people there. The second one, there were 400 people there. And it is by people having the courage to show up, it gives your neighbors the courage to do so as well. So for those of us in the queer community, that courage to show up, to be your authentic self and to live that way, you never know when that's going to give someone else the courage to do the same. And maybe be, in some cases, to shed that very heavy preservation cloak they put over themselves that said, I'm going to be against you because I'm so ashamed of who I am, or I'm so worried about what people will think of me. It's our example that can break that.
Yeah. Bree, all I ask is after you win, because I know you're going to win, all I ask is that you consider coming back on my podcast to talk about how you won and how it felt. That's all I ask. Because
I would be more than thrilled in that case to come back and tell you all about it.
I am throwing good vibes, good energy, everything at you because I really, really, really hope you win because you deserve it. You are the type of American that we need to represent our country. And I will post you on my social media, promote the hell out of this podcast for you so people know who you are if they don't know who you are already. So I wish you really good luck, and I can't wait till November until you win. So that's how I'd like to end it.
Thanks, Zach. It was a pleasure to join you.
It was so amazing having you, everybody. So go to the description, go and support Bree, whether it's volunteering, whether it's donating, whatever you can do, please do it because we need her in office. We need her in office. This is how we move forward. So thank you again for being on, Bree. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.